Welcome back to the Pioneer Home. My name is Jenna Lee. I love restoring the good old-fashioned ways of homemaking here on the farm and also restoring order to this chaotic, small entryway mudroom / laundry room. This would be episode 4 or part 4 of this makeover. I am just a mom of almost 4 kids who is tackling the shoe chaos that is going on in this super small space. So this week I wanted to share with you guys a couple great DIYs that you can do pretty much on your own. They are super budget friendly and cost very little to do. If you're just getting a glimpse of this transformation, after this video, go back and watch the other ones, see where we started at the very beginning. Today we are going to start by cutting down the excessive shoe clutter because I am convinced that this family has way too many shoes. And then I'll share these simple DIY projects with you. So because there are so many shoes for every season, I mean, you've got sandals for summer, you've got beach shoes, or wherever you live, depending on where you live, you've probably got winter shoes and summer shoes and in-between shoes. So I started keeping a tote that just has winter boots and shoes in it. So when we are out of the snowy season, which in Missouri is much shorter than Wyoming, I put all of the winter boots for kids and adults in the same bin and just label that winter boots, and it goes out to our storage shed. It's also good to take these seasonal transitions to go through your shoes, especially if you have children, small children, big children who are growing all the time, and just cycling through, seeing what the next kid could use and getting rid of the ones that you can no longer use. And in our case with little boys, sometimes you just have to chuck them in the garbage. And if they are salvageable, they go to the donation. So we're about to take a box full of donations of shoes that no longer suit our family. I always say, especially when it comes to seasonal stuff, if you haven't used this in 6 months, maybe a year, but that's kind of generous. If you haven't used this in 6 months, then it's time to let it go. You're not going to be using it next year. All right, so we've got our donation box. Jay, thanks for taking that to the car for us. Myra, come get your little sister box of shoes over here.
You want me to put it in the back of the truck?
Yeah. Myra, those are going to go under your bed for your little sister. And the rest of these, we'll have to figure out where they're going to go. And for now, we are going to put all of our church shoes into our bedrooms. Church shoes, slippers, shoes that we wear on special occasions, not every single day. We're going to put those in our bedroom, and only shoes that we wear all the time, every day. School shoes, boots for going out on the farm, for gardening, just shoes that we wear all the time. Those are the only type of shoes that I want here in our mudroom entryway. Now, the hard part is going to be maintaining that as a hard rule in this house. We'll see if we can manage. Do you think we can do it? So for project number 1, I wanted to already use this bench in this entryway or mudroom, and I saw this idea on Pinterest. Good old Pinterest. I'm going to use this bench as a shoe rack as well. So I went and picked up this 3/4 inch wooden dowel. For this project, you're going to need a bench that has 2 legs that are wide enough to hold 2 posts or dowels, or those 2 bars that you can rest shoes on. You're also going to need a screw bit that is the exact same size as your dowel. So for me, it's 3/4 an inch. I decided to go all the way through the wood with my drill so that I could easily slide the dowel in and out, and that way I could figure out where exactly it needed to go on the other side of the bench, where that exact point needed to be. Oftentimes I am inspired by a picture or I see something, and instead of going through all of the directions, I just look at it and I go, I can do that. And I just jump into a project. So this is me jumping into this project, and you know, lucky for me, it turned out really well. I would just say rest a shoe up here on this before you solidify your second bar or wooden dowel in here. I thought the incline was a little steep, so just see what works good for you, but definitely use a leveler to get that bar just right so that you can have a straight dowel, and go ahead and mark it with a pencil. Once you figured out where that dowel needs to be placed, you can put it in there and make adjustments needed with your saw. Make sure it's the right length before you glue that in. And I did not paint or stain the wooden dowel because I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to paint this whole bench or not, or leave it the original color. And once you've glued this in with some liquid nails or Gorilla Glue, either of those would work, you can add some stain on there to make it match. But that pretty much completes this first project. This was super simple. This dowel cost me $5 or $6. I already had the bench sitting around, so pretty inexpensive. I know not everyone's just going to have the perfect bench sitting around, but if you keep your eyes open, you could look on Marketplace or the thrift stores. You could even try building one. I was thinking a church pew would actually do nicely for a project like this. So this is what is really making me think that I need to paint this bench or maybe tweak the colors going on here. This is going to be a hall tree that goes right behind the bench, and this is going to have coat hooks and possibly a shelf on it. So I would like to know what you guys think. Do you think I should paint the bench? I could paint it this creamy white that's here on the walls. I'm also using a light sage green color called Coastal Plains by Sherwin-Williams in this entryway. So let me know if you think that this bench needs to be painted or not. And I will update you on this hall tree in a future video. Okay, so for project number 2, we are going to make a boot peg rail. And if you've been watching this whole makeover, you know that I am the make use of what you have, recycle and reuse type of girl, and I had all of these trim pieces that go to this original 100-year-old farmhouse out in the barn, and so I'm using all of that recycled wood. If you're not using 100-year-old recycled wood trim, you're going to need to go pick up some boards that are close to an inch thick, and then some wooden dowels. I'm using 3/4 inch wooden dowels for this project. Again, I decided to measure out my pegs to be about 6 inches because I know that at least 1 inch is going to go all the way through the board. So that's going to leave me with a 5-inch peg. I would say you could go between 4 and 5 inches for the length of the peg, but just keep in mind that you need to add 1 extra inch for the width of your board. Then I sanded down the edges to make sure there were no little slivers or loose pieces of wood there on the edge that were a little rough after the saw. I did notice later that I ended up getting 2 different types of wood. I think one of these was like a solid oak type and the other was a poplar. And actually they both worked, but I liked the poplar because it was a little bit softer and not such a rough cut. So, yep, just depends on if you're going to stain or if you're going to paint. And I'm going to choose to paint my pegs. So this color is Coastal Plain by Sherwin-Williams, and this is the color that is on some of the trim in the rest of this room. And I'm just hoping that I'm not going to regret choosing such a light color to go on a boot peg rail, since we are going to be putting up big muddy boots up here. So maybe you want to go with a darker color or a dark stain. That might be a better choice, but we'll see. So in order to fit the right size boots on here and as many boots as I wanted to fit on these boards, I had to figure out a measurement system. First, I started out by measuring the height of the board and finding out the center. So I marked the center of the board on each side and then drew a line down the length of the board to figure out where the middle or center of the board was. So this is where the pegs are going to go. I strongly suggest grabbing some of the boots that you're going to be putting up on these pegboards so you can see how many of these boots you're actually going to be able to fit up here, because the top of your boot, or I guess you could say the sole of your boot, is wider than the ankle where your pegs are going to go. So you just have to make sure that your pegs are narrow enough to hold the ankle of your boot, but that you're also leaving enough space so that there's enough space for the sole of the boot, if that makes sense. Tell me it makes sense. Give me a thumbs up if this makes sense. So I figured that I needed about 2.5 inches for the actual boot to go in between those pegs. So the first two holes were 2.5 inches apart. And then I also needed a space to go between the dowels. So I put 2 inches in between the next pegs. And then I did 2.5 for the next boot. And then the space in between the pegs was another 2 inches. And so on and so forth. So where each boot was going, I left 2.5 inches. And between the pegs, I left 2 inches. This was going to allow me to fit on this size board 2 pairs of boots. You guys, math is not my strong suit, so if you come up with a better system for your boards, that's great. Go for it. Just get the job done, right? So then I continued to use my 3/4 an inch drill bit to make the holes for the right size of dowels that I have. I've already measured out where these are going to go on the wall, and it's kind of nice to have them sandwiched in between the edge of this antique door and also the edge of a wall, because it's just kind of a secure fit. So I've already measured that out. I figured out where the studs are going to go. And so then I'm going to place my board in place. You know, I was thinking after I've already done this and I'm watching it that you could definitely put some liquid nails behind these boards, but you do want to make sure that they are secure on the wall because they're going to be holding some big heavy boots, especially if your husband has feet the size of my husband. Fill in the holes with liquid nails, and then you can put your pegs in there and pound them in with a mallet. You can kind of straighten them out a little bit before the glue dries. Make sure that they're all pointing the same way and they're all in there nice and straight and secure. This top rack is exclusively for Jared's ginormous boots. The rest of the boots are on my kids' little feeties who are outside helping their daddy plant some blackberry and raspberry bushes. We are putting in a berry patch, which is a dream I've had for a very long time, so that's exciting. So when they come in, I'll be excited to show them how to properly hang their muddy boots on their new peg rack. So excited. If you are loving this boot pegboard, then I know you're also gonna love the pegboard I did on the opposite wall. We are going peg crazy over here. There are still a few more things that I wanna do in this laundry room, mudroom, entryway. One of those things is putting up the curtain over these laundry machines, so we're definitely going to be doing some sewing as well. And I've also begun the project on this antique door hall tree, which this is an original pocket door that was in this old Victorian house, and we are turning that into a hall tree. So make sure that you keep in touch, subscribe to the channel so that you can be notified on the next video. Let's go see how the berry patch planting is going. I have a vision of having big berry patches out here and lots and lots of people coming and picking berries.
We're doing the grape kind.
These are blueberries. We've got some raspberries.
We got more blueberries.
It may look like we're just planting some raspberries and putting up some pegboards, but we're doing a lot more than that. We are really sowing dreams over here and memories. So if you want to be a part of our family here on the Pioneer Home, I make a new video every single weekend. Make sure you're following along, make sure you're subscribed, and I'll catch you next time. Love you lots.